One Piece has given us countless epic battles over the years, but there's one fight that we've all been dreaming of as the ultimate showdown ever since Oda first revealed it. The Pirate King Roger teaming up with the hero of the Marines Garp to take on the most notorious pirate in history, Rox D. Xebec. When it was first unveiled, many felt that this would be the greatest battle we could ever see. One so fantastical it almost felt too good to be true. And now, after years of waiting, the dream matchup has finally gone down. And the question is, did Roger and Garp's destined battle against Rox live up to the hype? Did it deliver the scale, the power, and the emotion that we've been envisioning for so long? Today, we're breaking down the biggest heavyweight battle in One Piece history, piece by piece, to see if Oda delivered on the ultimate fight card imaginable. But first, holiday season is here, and that means Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all holiday parties in between, which means it's time for you to start looking better. If you want to give yourself a giant refresh so that you can tackle the world while feeling good about your body, then use Manscaped's all-in-one grooming kit, the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. That's right, it's an all-in-one grooming kit for your entire body. Everything you need to groom yourself is included in here. It has the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, groin and body hair trimmer, the Weed Whacker 3.0 ear, nose, and eyebrow hair trimmer, and the crop soother and crop preserver. That means that you can shave all over to feel fresh and presentable. You can groom your body, upper and lower, your nose and ear hair, and even your eyebrows. And because it's holiday season, with the all-in-one grooming kit, we also have free gifts included. The Boxers 2.0 Midnight Bravo, and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. Even if you're just trying to think ahead for a Christmas gift for your father, your brother, your partner, well, this is it. This is the all-in-one kit that makes for the perfect Christmas gift. And the best part is that my viewers can get 15% off. Just use my promo code MORGE and you will get 15% off at checkout. That's 15% off with promo code MORGE at manscaped.com. Or if you need it today, you can find Manscaped at a store near you. So that aside, to begin with, God Valley was by far the most anticipated battle in the history of One Piece, and Oda did a phenomenal job as a fight promoter here. When it was first revealed to us that there was once an all-time great pirate named Rox, who was in fact also Roger's ultimate enemy, and who actually commanded all the Yonko, and in fact every legendary pirate of the previous era, and he was only defeated thanks to an all-out battle where Prime Roger and Garp teamed up to fight him? Well, that entire scenario seemed too insane to even imagine ever reading on page when it was first introduced to us. Readers since then have been salivating over the prospect of seeing this God Valley incident, precisely because we knew that this would be the most high-level battle in One Piece history. Hell, even in the manga itself, Oda literally has the characters themselves voice the reader's feelings about how absurdly surreal such a battle would be. All of the additional details Oda threw in only amplified the expectations of this fight. Supposedly, this is where Garp's legend really took off, as he was dubbed the hero who took down the unstoppable force of evil, the Rox Pirates, which is something that even today, 40 years later, and despite the government desperately trying to bury the incident, high-ranking Marines acknowledge this as his defining achievement. Oda also establishing that Rox was Roger, the Pirate King's personal greatest foe ever, seemingly set up the most important fight ever for One Piece's most iconic legend, who we've been hearing about since literally the first page of the story. And when Oda finally decided that it was time for this fight to go down, he upped the stakes even further by not just having Garp and Roger go up against Rox, but having them go up against a powered-up, demonic version of Rox, essentially a force even beyond Pirate King. And the cherry on top was that Oda had Rox showcase this abnormal strength by first tearing through all three future Yonko like they were nothing before the main event, to make the final showdown that much more dramatic. So again, in terms of fight promotion, Oda did a 10 out of 10 job, absolutely perfect. All the ingredients were there. This right here was without a question the setup for the greatest heavyweight fight in One Piece history. The most legendary pirate of all time and the most legendary marine of all time in the greatest battle of their lives against a demonic foe whose strength defied all previous standards in the story. So did this fight live up to the build-up? Well, to begin with, I definitely say it surpassed expectations in terms of emotional storytelling. The initial premise of Garp and Roger teaming up to fight some super strong evil pirate is very simple and straightforward. From the very beginning, it sounded like theoretically we would get to see the good guys of the old generation beat up on this bad guy that Oda invented for them to dunk on. We always expected that this fight would be epic, but what we didn't realize was how much emotional depth there would be when we finally got to it. Framing this entire battle as a tragedy rather than a triumph was a brilliant writing decision by Oda, as was the twist that the entire lead up to the incident played out through the perspective of the supposed villain of the story, Rocks. As such, the true purpose of the God Valley battle was to frame the broader conflict of the entire world, reminding us that the actual root of all evil is ultimately Emu and the Celestial Dragons. Whereas this great God Valley battle was initially pitched as a good pirate and good marine fighting against a nasty evil pirate, in reality we were shown that at first they were all on the same side, fighting the actual villain of the world. The man we were originally told was the villain of the story was in fact its hero. A man who sought to reclaim the world from the evil that had overtaken it, who ultimately had to forego his grand plans in order to protect the ones he loved from this very evil. And for all his efforts, his reward was to be turned into a helpless puppet for this great evil that he had fought so hard against. Seeing Roger and Garp, the characters that we know and love, in their grandest battle, not fighting some terrible villain, but rather having to put down a fallen ally in an act of mercy, gives this battle such a unique layering of emotions. It elicits our excitement and awe, but at the same time a deep sadness, and above all, anger at the cruel injustice that we are being forced to witness. Again, this is the true purpose of the battle, not just to showcase Roger and Garp in an epic fight, but to hammer in deeper than ever just how important it is to overthrow the evil behind it all, to stop the injustice and manipulation. And that is the perfect feeling to instill in the reader before cutting back to the present day where we are in the final war and the actual protagonists of the story are about to begin the conflict of taking down that very same evil from God Valley once and for all. Ultimately, every flashback in One Piece should build up the reader's emotions to want to see the modern day conflict resolved. And in this sense, God Valley pulls this off perfectly. Not just delivering on the promise of getting to see Roger and Garp fight the strongest pirate of all time, but adding actual emotional complexity to the showdown that gives meaning to the current day conflict that the Straw Hats are faced with. But all that being said, beyond its dramatic and thematic strengths, on a simpler level, did the fight itself live up to the hype going into it? So when Oda pitched a fight featuring the greatest pirate in history and the greatest marine in history side by side against the supposed ultimate evil, what we all hoped for was to see it break the ceiling of combat in One Piece. This wasn't 80-year-old Whitebeard walking around on life support. This wasn't Kaido fighting an inexperienced Conqueror's Haki user. No, we wanted to see a full battle with characters of this level, not just a clash. And in that vein, God Valley 100% delivered on breaking the ceiling of power of One Piece battles so far. Going into the battle, there was some skepticism that Roger and Garp may not be in their primes just yet. However, these early clashes were many years before the God Valley battle. By the time God Valley itself rolled around, it was clear that Garp was by far the most powerful marine in existence by a wide margin. Garp was clearly treated as the big man in the Marines even by admirals, and they had to beg him and only him to come in to save all the Celestial Dragons at God Valley, meaning Garp was treated as the biggest asset the Marines had well beyond the admirals. And the narrator literally establishes that all the strongest men on the ocean were on God Valley, meaning no other Marines made the cut besides Garp. This was most certainly Garp's prime as the quote-unquote hero of the Marines. He was already their Superman. And right off the bat, Oda further cements that God Valley most certainly takes place during Garp's heyday, where Garp was considered the devil himself by all pirates. This being made immediately clear by this absolutely absurd moment of Garp having 3 future Yonko on the run, and casually waltzing through Big Mom's attacks like they were nothing. It is immediately obvious that this Garp is far stronger than the one on Hachinosu, and that we were finally seeing the mythical Prime Garp who all pirates feared. And in Roger's case, there was still a bit of a question mark if he was at his peak just yet. That was until we got to the battle against Rox himself, and it became clear that Roger had not yet shown nearly everything that he had in the bag. As it turned out, once Roger got serious, he was every bit as strong as Garp. You could split hairs as to whether or not these two were in their absolute primes, but they're literally 39 and 40 years old at this point. That is generally the age by which One Piece characters are established to be in their prime, and it's especially likely considering Roger here is coincidentally the exact same age as his modern-day parallel Shanks. There wouldn't be any logical reason for Oda to not be writing them at their peak right now. Not to mention, it simply makes a lot of sense for them to be in their primes, considering Oda showed us the ludicrous level of their opponent. Right off the bat, Dami Reversi Rocks rips through Kaido, who, to be fair, was still young, but then also Big Mom, who at this point already had her two strongest homies, was already being portrayed as an absolute force of nature, and an advanced Conqueror's Haki user, and yet Rocks still treats her like she's nothing. And then to top it off, Rocks also overwhelms even Whitebeard. Considering that this Whitebeard is far stronger than the version we saw at Marineford, where he was 70 years old, very literally on life support, was having heart attacks every 2 minutes, and couldn't even use Conqueror's Haki, and even still was an absolute monster that was going toe-to-toe with admirals, and this far stronger version of Whitebeard at God Valley was shown to be no match for Dami Reversied Rocks. So right off the bat, Oda basically made it clear that this version of Rocks is simply on a far higher level than any character we've ever seen outside of Joy Boy and Emu. So the setup heading into it is basically two characters who are at least Yonko level, if not in their primes, the quote-unquote Pirate King level, up against an enemy who has transcended even that. And the spectacle that follows absolutely lives up to the billing. In all of One Piece, never have we seen a battle like this, where every single interaction is producing island-sized streaks of Conqueror's Haki flooding across the landscape, where seemingly every single blow is rewriting the geography of the island. Within 5 minutes of fighting, these characters have genuinely decimated the entire gigantic island of God Valley and turned it into rubble. To put it into perspective of how absurdly unprecedented this is, Luffy and Kaido, over the course of an entire night of fighting, barely did any damage to Onigashima. Even Kaido and Big Mom, fighting for over a day and a night, according to them with intent to kill, also barely did any damage to Onigashima. And keep in mind, Onigashima is a really small island by comparison. It's pretty much only big enough to house Kaido's castle, whereas God Valley is a genuine full-sized island nation. Even compared to other battles at other actual full-sized islands, Akainu and Awakichi fighting for 10 days straight didn't destroy Punk Hazard. Hell, even Prime Roger and Prime Whitebeard fighting each other for an entire night didn't destroy the island. But with the duo versus Rocks at God Valley, we have the first and only battle in all of One Piece where an entire island is genuinely leveled to the ground. And the craziest thing is that it all happens in the blink of an eye. Unlike all these other day-long or even multi-day-long battles, where the islands are still left standing, Roger, Garp, and Rocks turned all of God Valley into rubble in literally less time than it took Rayleigh to run to shore. As such, the scale of this fight is fittingly on a level that we would have hoped, clearly surpassing anything we've had in One Piece before by an extremely large margin. And the best part is that none of the combatants disappoint. Dami Reversied Rocks is the first character ever shown to be so powerful that he is able to split the sky by himself, with just his own Conqueror's Haki release, whereas normally it takes at least 2 Yonko level characters together to produce that effect. And on Roger and Garp's end, their combined final attack is also by far the largest scale Haki attack ever seen in the story, with gigantic Conqueror's Haki streaks resonating far beyond the island itself. So was God Valley a fitting showcase of the level of strength that we would expect from the ceiling of One Piece's strongest characters? I would definitely say yes. I doubt we will see anything that surpasses the scale until One Piece's final battle or the Void Century flashback. But before we get into it, the bosses are here. This month you can get our brand new collection, the Boss Poster Collection. 15 dynamically illustrated One Piece villains, 15 hidden iconic moments. Get Cunning Crocodile with a hidden Straw Hat Alabasta send-off. Get Vicious Rob Lucci with a hidden Jet Gatling. Or Yonko Blackbeard with a hidden Crossroads of Fate. And many, many more. And this month, you can buy 2 posters and get any 2 posters free with the deal auto-applied at checkout. And here is the big news. If you get the buy 2 get 2 free deal, you also get a 3rd free bonus exclusive poster where you get to choose either Emu or Rocks. You can also pick up the entire collection at a massive bundle discount and get both Emu and Rocks for free. And to add a little extra, we are offering free worldwide shipping on all orders. Both Emu and Rocks are only available this month, and after this month, they'll never be available ever again. So get them before they go. And finally, if you want a shot at getting this entire collection for free, then just give us a follow on our brand new Instagram page, One Dream Studio. Everyone who follows our page is immediately entered into a giveaway where the winner will get the entire collection for free, so go follow us on Instagram right now. The winner will be announced on Monday, November 24th. Link in the description below. Now there are a few critiques of this battle, namely that the fight was too short and too simple. And on the one hand, there is some truth that while Oda did an amazing job promoting the fight and building a ton of anticipation for the showdown that's been 200 chapters in the making, it did resolve itself very quickly, in 1 chapter, and with really only about half the chapter at best being devoted to the fight. Now to be fair, this is a flashback, and Oda's storytelling naturally has to move a lot faster in flashbacks, as generally he is having to condense many events into a short amount of time. And usually we don't even get fights in flashbacks, so one could argue that we are lucky to get anything for Roger and Garp vs. Rocks. But on the flip side, unlike most other flashbacks, in this case, the battle itself is what Oda built up in the story. It is literally known as the Battle of God Valley, so when the flashback is all leading up to this battle, it's not really the same as readers expecting Chopper's backstory to have some crazy battles. In this case, it is reasonable to expect that a flashback to a specific battle would show the battle. Now, that being said, taking into consideration that a flashback will still have more condensed storytelling than usual, simply by necessity, I think by the standards of a flashback's pace of storytelling, Oda gave us plenty here. The fight between Roger, Garp, and Rocks is already more extensive than any individual battle that took place at Marineford. Although this does lead to a separate piece of criticism, which is that, well, maybe that in itself is a growing problem. That in general, a lot of the most exciting matchups in One Piece tend to only give us snippets of fights rather than the full battles. That's been the case with recent events like Law vs. Blackbeard or Garp vs. the Blackbeard Pirates. So many readers were hoping that this, the most anticipated fight in One Piece history, would not suffer the same fate. Now this is a pretty important discussion point, as One Piece is ultimately a battle manga. Regardless of the claims that it's an adventure manga, the reality is that the adventures of the heroes are really just a vehicle to get to the main conflicts of each storyline, which are literally always battles. Every arc concludes in traditional shonen battles where the heroes defeat the villains, and literally the entirety of One Piece's narrative from day one has been building up to the biggest shonen war in the history of shonen wars. So pretending this somehow isn't a battle manga is simply disingenuous. As such, the reader's expectations of actually getting to see fights in a battle manga is completely fair. And yes, while on the one hand readers loved Marineford despite it only showing us snippets of fights, that's because of storytelling progression. Prior to Marineford, we'd never seen any top-tier characters in One Piece fight each other at all. So after 500 chapters of waiting, finally getting to see a glimpse of what these characters could do with quick clashes and skirmishes felt fresh and captivating. But that's because that was the first time. Just because readers were excited the first time the author showed us a glimpse of top-tier battles, doesn't mean that for the next 600 chapters, readers will still be satisfied only ever getting glimpses of top-tier's fights. It's natural for readers to want to feel some level of progression over time. And I think that that desire to see extended action is especially fair in the context of God Valley. as after all, the entire story began with this man, Gold Roger. The entire series is named after his opening words. Roger is an incomparably significant character in the narrative, and this built-up battle at God Valley may very well be the only time we get to see him actually fight. As such, I think there is a fair argument that for this one instance, in a flashback where the centerpiece was pitched as a big battle, where the main thing that readers have always been hoping for is a battle, where this is arguably the most anticipated battle we've ever had in this battle manga, I think Oda could maybe have broken his rules a little bit and dedicated one full chapter to the fight instead of cutting away as much as he did. However, at the end of the day, do I still feel satisfied by the fight? Yes. Again, this sequence that we got was more extensive than most other non-Straw Hat fights in the story. We actually did get a lot of action by One Piece standards for this battle. It wasn't a fight where we just saw clashes, there was more thought put into the interactions. And more importantly, I think Oda did a good job showcasing Roger and Garp's fighting styles. I think there was a great flow of action from what we did see of the fight, and I think Oda created some really epic moments in the process. While I would have loved even more from this battle, at the end of the day, neither Roger, Garp, or Rox have particularly complex fighting styles, so it was always mainly going to be a lot of big hockey attacks being thrown around, until Roger and Garp combined their strength for a big finish. Considering what the abilities of the characters involved are, I think what we got of the fight was personally very satisfying. So overall, Roger and Garp vs. Rox certainly met the scale one would hope for this fight, and it actually surpassed expectations when it came to emotional weight. While one could argue that such a great fight could have had a full chapter dedicated to it, the quality of what we did get on page certainly reached the highs that I hoped for when Oda first told us of this legendary battle so many years ago. So let me know in the comments below what you would rate the fight, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to hear what I've realized Oda's standard rule is for when he decides if he's dedicating a full chapter to a fight or not, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below.